The Justice Department is now directing federal prosecutors to investigate any local or state official who tries to stop the enforcement of the Trump administration's immigration policies. It comes as more than 20 Democratic attorneys general filed lawsuits yesterday seeking to block Trump's executive order surrounding birthright citizenship. The order itself attempts to limit automatic citizenship to those with at least one parent who is a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. Trump's proposal would not go into effect for another month, leaving it open to court challenges. Civil rights groups have also filed their own joint lawsuit. Joining us now, the Attorney General heading up the lawsuit filed in federal district court in Massachusetts over Trump's attempt to end birthright citizenship, New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin. Okay, so here we go. We take it case by case and don't get overwhelmed, but this is a big one. And do you foresee problems here? This seems like one of the most impossible things that Donald Trump has put out there in terms of his plans.
Well, it is, Mika. It's such a flagrant violation of our Constitution and of the norms of this nation.
And yet I would never say never pertaining to Donald Trump. So just not saying it's completely impossible. I guess you can't.
Look, birthright citizenship has been part of the fabric of this nation for centuries. It's been in the Constitution for 157 years. Even I think President Trump knows that this exceeds his authority. And we're going to have the court say that. And I am confident that this order will never come into effect.
Rev?
Attorney General Platkin, you and I have worked on some civil rights cases in New Jersey. Talk about the overtones that this gives to a lot of people that are concerned, because the 14th Amendment really came as a result of the Dred Scott decision, where they were saying that the slaves could not be citizens, even though they were born here, because they're black. So this really goes to the heart of bigotry and bias that we're dealing with, because I don't know if the people we were talking about were not Mexican or brown, whether Trump would be as vehement as he is. Talk about the civil rights overtones here.
That's exactly right, Rev. I mean, the only period in American history where birthright citizenship was not accepted was the Civil War in the wake of the Dred Scott decision. So in the wake of the Civil War, this country came together and said, we don't want to leave citizenship up to the whims of a president, that if you're born on American soil. This has been the rule now in the Constitution for 157 years. And I live in New Jersey. I live in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, the state of Ellis Island, where millions of people have come through and built their lives in our state. We are a state of immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants. And just comparing it to the conversation you just had, you say people who killed a cop, a New Jersey resident, are American patriots. But people born here are deprived of the rights and privileges of American citizenship that date back to whether descendants of slaves would be accepted as Americans in the wake of the Civil War. I mean, this is a legal problem. We're going to win in the courts. But we got to make sure people understand how extreme this is. When we talk about the rule of law, this isn't an abstract concept. It's whether or not a president can write out a 157-year-old provision in the Constitution with a stroke of a pen. I would argue we can't.
Such an important point, and I think a lot of Americans have no idea the history that Rev just shared, and it's so important. I wanted to ask you also about other potential civil rights challenges. Rev and I were talking off air about the efforts to roll back DEI, and I have real questions about whether or not there's legal authority to do that, or to, en masse fire people who are doing, who are really actually working to protect the civil rights of diverse Americans. I know you're thinking a lot going forward about his agenda. Are there other issues like that you expect you'll be defending?
Hey, look, I've said since November the 5th, I swore an oath as the chief law enforcement officer and the attorney for 9.5 million people that we will uphold the Constitution of this country and our state. That's what I and my colleagues said we would do. By the way, the president swore an oath saying the same thing. So we're going to look at every issue as to whether or not what he is doing violates the law, violates the Constitution. And if the answer is yes, and it hurts our residents, we're not going to be afraid of a fight to step up. It's not about whether I agree with him. It's not about politics. It's about whether the rule of law, it has to mean something in this country. And when we talk about that, that's what we're talking about.
New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin, thank you very much for coming on the show today. We appreciate it. And